Hi, Melissa. Thank you so much for your poems this week. I have to say that it is such a joy to picture someone being in Alaska as it's hitting 105 degrees here in Tucson in the desert. So every time I read your work, I get a little bit more excited to see what you have to say. Um, I wanted to say that one of the first things that you asked was about your poetry tending to rhyme because you're a singer, which absolutely makes sense because you would associate this art form with the art form that you practice on a regular basis. But I love that you tried something different, and I do think that this version seems very genuine in the same ways that I need to stretch myself as a poet who doesn't tend to rhyme. I think, and so sometimes I need to experiment with rhymes. I think that you, as a poet who does tend to rhyme, should experiment with non rhyming poetry, right? It's like that's the whole point of this class is to go ahead and try new things and experiment. And so I'm so glad that you did that this week and tried something new. It's great. And I do think that it's very successful. I also like the four line stanza. It works really well for me. In moving forward with this poem, my suggestion would be to simply trim the fat. I think you have the form. I think there's an interesting story that you're telling and interesting things that you're describing. Um, but for example, let me find the moment I was looking for. My window sees all, penthouse at the top. Cement protects me from earth's splendor. So many people in one building I see. So, for example, if I were to look at this and rewrite this stanza, I would consider cutting the word my and changing this to window sees all, just because I like the sound of it. And it's already clear that this is in a first person perspective from earlier stanzas. Penthouse at the top feels a little bit redundant, right? So, of course, a penthouse is on the top floor. So, what else can you say about the penthouse, or can you just call it a penthouse and leave it there? Window sees all, perhaps from the penthouse. I love this line. Cement protects me from earth's splendor. Super, super original, super interesting. So I wouldn't go anywhere with that. Um, so many people in one building I see. I would consider cutting the word so and just saying many people in one building I see. So that's what I mean when I talk about redacting or trimming the fat from a poem. Um, so play around with that and see what you think. I think the second poem is also really well done. Um, I do think that you used extensive imagery successfully, and I do think that the adjectives do justice to the place that you're describing. I wonder why you chose to end "My new memory will sustain its magic for years to come" with an exclamation point. I guess I always tend to question exclamation points in poems, although I use them extensively myself in things like text and email as a quick stand in to express enthusiasm. I think in poetry, we should question our punctuation and especially an exclamation point, because how is it that the language can function differently so that you don't need that exclamation point? So that would be my challenge for you in moving forward with this. Thank you so much for your work this week.